Well, who's on first?
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk. Who? The guy on first.
Who?
The guy playing first base.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who is on first?
What are you asking me for? I'm asking you.
What is up, everybody? Thank you for listening to this episode of Who's on First. I am Tim Elberg, and that is Brian Kaplinger. And today we are talking all things Cardinals baseball. We're going to deep dive and just nerd out about our favorite teams a little bit, and we'll update you on a couple things in the league that happened this past week. But we're just going to nerd out and have some fun on our favorite team. So hopefully, if there's anybody listening that is not into the Cardinals, you can move on, I guess.
There you go.
But,
just head down the road a little bit. No,
yeah, just make sure to like and subscribe before you do that. We would both appreciate
that's
that.
right. And maybe you get an early scouting report for your team or something. I don't know. Just to know how to go against us.
Dude, I don't think they're going to need anything. I don't think anybody's worried about it. Let's be honest.
I don't think so either. Not this year, anyway.
But I think it would be fun. We're just going to jump right in. This past weekend was the Cardinals Fan Fest. I think every teams are having theirs over the first few weeks of January. I know Minnesota is having theirs as we record Friday. They're having it this weekend. But the Cardinals winter warm-up happened, and we got to interview, not us particularly, but interviews happened of a lot of the players, a lot of the coaches. And I thought it'd be fun to just kind of deep dive and nerd a little bit about what we expect of our team and what that also means for the division and for the league as a whole, like what we expect of the team. We're just going to go back and forth and kind of riff with each other, and we're just going to talk about kind of the top three things for each of us individually, what came out and what we expect. So I'm going to hit you first.
All
so
right.
give me, if you want to go, I don't know if you're ranking them or like we just, they're unranked, but
Yeah, I think for me it's more unranked, but kind
Okay.
of, the main things that kind of pulled for it. And the first one for me was really just like, the prospects and the young players being in the spotlight. Like, I don't think it was a surprise for me. I mean, we knew this going in, this was going to be the focus. But for me specifically, how they're catapulting like J.J. Weatherholt in the mix with like VS2 and Mason Winn as kind of the front runners. Now, granted, you know this, we know this. I mean, Weatherholt's one of the top 5 prospects. I think he was rated as number 3 by certain ones as far as in baseball in general, not just for the Cardinals organization, but like, that's a big step because that's probably, I can't remember the last time we had a prospect rated that high overall in MLB. And so I think it was really good to see him out there. And like, for me, some of the fun was the personality that got to come out a little bit. He's a little goofy, a little kind of, off kilter, but him kind of playing around and dressing up, and they had him do the in disguise, trying to get some interviews and autographs from the players, and a couple of them he fooled pretty good. I think he got Palante really good because Palante had no clue who he was at all.
Yeah, that was kind of funny.
Right. Mason Winn nailed it, and then Burley I think caught on at the end, but it was things like that, because for me getting a little bit more serious on that side for him, like even the way that the players are talking about JJ in the sense of they're excited to see what he has to offer, like Mason Winn talking about the idea of having him at third base, which was kind of telling to me because there's been kind of this speculation around him of where is he really going to play? Is he going to end up out in the outfield? Is he going to be at second base? If, Donovan gets moved, which is still kind of hanging around on that side. But so for me, I think it was a lot of fun, just kind of seeing that, but then also hearing the talk and then Ollie backing up that conversation with him on the sense of just, the calmness, the poise, and maybe just some excitement he can bring. And with the other prospects, I mean, you're talking about like Josh Baez, getting put on the 40-man, how excited he was about that. And I know you'll want to talk about VS2, so I'm not even going to talk about him a little bit. I'll leave your boy to you for later on.
Respect.
But it was just like, the really turning over the reins. I mean, I think we saw it with the trades. Obviously, you move Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, all of those guys. You know, and I think it was even kind of fitting that Bloom even talked about there's not a guarantee that Nootbaar has a starting role, you know, this upcoming year because they want to see what some of these young guys have. Now, I'm not sure how Newt feels about that, but I like that we have our president of baseball operations out here just saying, hey, look, we're handing this off to the young guys and we're going to let them play this year and see what they can do. It's not so much about wins and losses, but it'll be about more of the progression and the development of those guys at the major league level.
Yeah. One thing about JJ, I didn't have him on my list, not because it wasn't important, but just some other things stuck out to me more. But I did read a report like, man, it was prior to the winter warm-up from Bernie Michaelis, who interviewed and talked to one of the staff coaches, and he didn't say who. You can just kind of speculate a little bit, but he did say he could confirm that JJ's position is set in two different ways based on the circumstances of what happens. He said if Brendan Donovan doesn't get traded and Brendan Donovan's on the roster, then JJ starts at third and stays at third.
Right.
And if which would make Nolan Gorman a DH. And then if Brendan Donovan's traded, JJ will start at second and stay at second. He'll just be the second baseman of at least of 2026,
right.
Which would then put Nolan Gorman and Sagasi kind of platooning at third. And I thought that was interesting because, I mean, it's not crazy interesting. You could kind of speculate that would happen because he's a shortstop, and there's already a shortstop who's a Gold Glover, so they're not going to remove him for it.
Right.
And there's only other two positions that you could put him at. And they did talk about last year how they had him rotating short, second, and third in the last season. But I like his confidence, which is also back to last episode. There's player types that I'm into, but I liked his confidence in the fact of like, in hindsight, we talk about Jordan Walker and how he started really young, and it kind of seemed like stuff got to him.
Right.
You kind of listen to JJ talk, and he's a few years older now than Walker was when he started, so maturity is probably definitely different. JJ also went through college.
Yeah, I was going to say the collegiate ball probably really helps with that. I mean, you look at someone like Jordan Walker, who's just fresh out of high school learning how to play at you know the second highest level in America, essentially. Yes,
absolutely. I did like his confidence a lot and just how he talked. He also has kind of the swing mechanics that just kind of seems like it's a simple and the most repetitive, and not like kind of like Gorman and Walker, how it has to be adjusted a little bit based on how you're being adjusted to, whereas JJ's swing is more contact oriented. It's smaller, and those are the two things that stuck out to me. The one thing I wonder about him, and it doesn't seem, again, based on we don't know this until time, but like there's a lot of pressure on him to succeed, kind of like Walker. There was Walker. Again, he's a few years older, and you don't know what that's going to do. You think based on his maturity now, it doesn't seem like that's going to phase him. Kind of like Quinn Matthews. Matthews kind of has this attitude of like, whatever, sure, it's cool. Right. But there's a lot of pressure to him succeed because there's a lot of talk like this rebuild is not going to work if he's not good. But you never know how somebody carries it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Like, I mean, when you talk big rebuild with him, like, I mean, on some aspects, what I love what Bloom is doing, and maybe the front office as a whole in this regard, is simply they're clearing the books. Because they're going to have a ton of money, whether it's a couple years from now or a return from a lockout, which I pray doesn't happen, type of deal. They're going to have plenty of money to spend. So, like, if Weatherholt doesn't pan out, I think quite to that level, they're setting themselves up in an opportunity to be able to pivot quickly from him. I mean, it's going to cost them money for sure. Yeah, but now that they've cleared the way kind of with some of the bigger contracts with those veterans, I think they'll be able to go out and make a splash in free agency to maybe help speed the retool up. Now, if all of these prospects start to bomb out, then you're talking about a lot of problems, a lot of trouble, which, not that I would say there's a 0% chance of that, but I would say it's a low probability that none of these guys really pan out. I think you're going to see 2, maybe even 3 of them really kind of find their own groove. And, for me, whether that's Baez or Weatherholt or Victor Scott, or let's say Jordan Walker does somehow find his way. I mean, and there's a lot of options here, and we're not even talking about the pitching side. This is just purely offensively at this point.
Right. So for me, one of the things, I'm going to go with Chaim Bloom first. I think about I'm trying not to sound like a jerk. I think about in the past few years that we've kind of been in this space and learning and growing. The attitude, I guess, that's portrayed to people in media and fan base from the organization has always been a little bit of I don't know, not disrespectful, because it just kind of sounds like it. It's not it, but it just has sounded like it.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate, first of all, Bloom just coming in and his demeanor and how he speaks to you speaks to media is very respectful and very passionate, and not doesn't have a malaise to it. Now, I mean, he's entering his first year in a job. You're going to be way more pumped than 20 years into your job. It's just kind of natural. But the second thing with him, before I get into the details, is he's also very articulate about his plan, and very articulate about, hey, I'm not punting this season. We could win, we might not. It doesn't look like on paper we will, but we're not going to rule it out. And we're not just going to say we're going to win 30 games. But we have a bigger goal, and every decision we make has to work towards that bigger goal, which is building a pitching pipeline and just a development pipeline like we used to have. And I like how he's super articulate. Now that could bite him, in the sense of trades down the road.
Right.
But at the same time, he needs to appeal himself to the fan base. The fans got to fall in love with him and the vision that he has for the team, because this organization's used to winning for a long time, and we haven't for a few years. And so I think he did he won the interview, I guess is the way that you could say that in the simplest of forms.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll pick up the tab and say not to be a jerk, but then I'm going to just say whatever I want to say anyway, right? So it's I mean, I think he does have the luxury, too, this first season of kind of that honeymoon phase when you're coming off of someone like John Mozeliak. And again, I think in the long run of Mozeliak's career, he'll be a Cardinal Hall of Fame guy because of what he was able to do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think it's just a sour note to the end of it, but the fan base was so frustrated, so fed up with the non-communication and like you said, I don't think it was intentional, but the belittling of the fans, we just couldn't see what was happening as a whole. And then you have Bloom, who's coming in going, we're just going to open the book up and be honest with everybody. I mean, not that there was really much he could do. I mean, the writing was on the wall. It was only a matter of time for this was going to implode in the way in which it did. And so I think, he's got that honeymoon. So I'm sure, a lot of fans are super excited in the direction, and his talk. I think more to me is he's backing it up by doing the very things that he said he was going to do. He's not shying away from those things. And you can even go to the Donovan situation where it's yes, everybody in the world knows they want to trade Donovan, but they're not going to just get rid of him because he's the best opportunity that the Cardinals have to get a haul in return. And if that means he's got to hold on to him until the trade deadline, he's completely fine with that. I think he's absolutely fine with, if nobody ever meets that demand, saying, you know what, we'll talk about an extension with Donovan if it's what's best. Now, I don't ultimately think that's what's best, so I'd like to see him moved at some point. But barring some catastrophic, collapse, there's no need to move him without getting the price. I mean, again, the big risk, obviously, going into the season with something like that is going to be injuries or very poor performance, because then the value is going to plummet to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't agree with you on the extension thing, but also at the same time I do agree like Donovan's a really valuable player to have around. I think he kind of falls into the category. I've said this a few different times of like he means more to the organization he's from and in than he does to the rest of baseball.
Sure.
He's a winning player. He's a really good player, and if timelines were different, he would be the perfect player. He's just a couple years too old for where this organization's probably headed. But at the same time, I do agree, like, it's not the worst thing in the world that he sticks around. Because technically, you know, we talk about how we're looking for veteran right-handed bats. He's technically a vet in the sense of, like, he's in his ARB years. He's 28, 27, 28. He's in the later 20s where all the rest of these kids are low 20s.
Right.
And he's got a leadership bent to it, and you can tell that. He's also, it's been reported many times, he's a good leader in the clubhouse. He's a good clubhouse guy. But at the same time, like you said, like the value that he carries is also important to the league right now. And if you've got to get something out of him, and if you're going to trade him, you need to get something good, or that's not worth trading him.
Yeah, 100% on that. And just to add real quick on that too, it's like at the end of the day, his positional flexibility benefits this team because if you can't get that right-handed power bat, but let's say Sagasi starts to develop that and shows that. You have an opportunity of moving Donovan out to left field, and Sagasi can come in and play second or third in that capacity. Not saying that's ideal, but you could do that because of his positional flexibility and still get that right-handed power bat if Sagasi is producing in that capacity.
Yeah. Two more things I want to mention with Bloom. He was asked a question from the fans. And again, I just want to reemphasize like how respectful he was, because some of the questions were just they were kind of silly. But he was really respectful in how he answered. But someone did answer how are we supposed to compete with the likes of the Dodgers and what they're doing? And he had a really good answer, but he talked about, and he was not, it wasn't word salad, but you can only say so much because rules and restrictions on, you know, the players union, the ownership. Like, I feel like the front offices of organizations are in this weird spot of like, they don't belong to the players union. They work for the organization, but they don't necessarily follow the same values that all the ownership has somewhat. Right. But anyway, he did have a good answer. And he said, he just talked about the parity that's happened over the last 5 or 6 years. And the timing of the Dodgers winning 2 back-to-back and then in the following offseason is a weird look in the sense of parity. But he emphasized, like, we've got to beat him at a different game, and we will beat him, you know. And then something he also said is, and he said this since he took the job and had that first press conference of, like, we're not where we want to be, and the only reason we're getting rid of these players, Arenado, Wilson Contreras, Sonny Gray, is because we're not where we want to be, and we have to commit to it, and we have to follow through and go after that. Right. And again, just laying out the vision, to your point, following the plan that he set in place. Hey, we're going to have to trade these guys. We need to build up our pitching. We need to build up our depth and development. Boom. He's been doing every single thing. And then one last thing with him is he did kind of talk about spring training in an interesting way, about what they're looking for JJ Wetterholt to succeed and make the team. He talked about it has nothing to do with the stat lines. But there's a few certain things that they're looking in the in-betweens, which they're not going to communicate for competitive reasons. But with spring training, he did say, like, my goal for that is to have a new outlook for media and fans to be able to see and hear from all the different staff, because they've hired, I think, like 10 to 18 new staff members, whether it's coaching or office. And those are really, really big deals. I've talked a lot about how, in previous episodes, about how the front office staff for baseball is such a big deal when it comes to payroll, and like the Dodgers lead in staff member numbers, which correlates to player development. But I do think it's really cool, and I'm really excited to see if that comes to fruition in spring training and people were able to meet and get interviews with all of these staff members that are a big deal in the new development cycle.
Right. No, I mean, Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun. I was glad he said that, like, statistically, the numbers aren't going to be the deciding factor coming out of spring training. Like, to me, you know, especially when you've got young guys coming in, it may take them a little bit longer. And then also throw in the mix that you're going to have a lot of people in and out, especially during spring due to, you know, the World Classic in that sense.
Yep.
But with that, that also means you're going to have a lot of opportunities. You should be able to see Weatherholt play a lot in spring because some of these other guys are going to be gone to a degree. And so hopefully, you know, that doesn't cause too much chaos. But again, I can speculate on what they're looking for, but it's, you know, it's going to be contact rate, all of that fun stuff, not necessarily looking at did they get on base or not, but are they hitting the ball well? You know, for the pitchers, it's going to be more of like, are they developing? Are they moving forward in whatever track each individual pitcher is on? That's going to be the marker of whether or not they get an opportunity coming out of spring to make this team.
Yep.
You know, because you even talk about not that he's a young guy or a prospect, but like Kyle Leahy coming into a starting pitching role. He's going to be given every opportunity in spring to see what that looks like. Now, can he capitalize on that? We'll see.
Yeah. And, I mean, spring training is two different games. The first half of it means nothing in the sense because pitchers are throwing fastballs because they've got to get warmed up and they've got to stretch out.
Right.
So if, you know, hitters are slamming, kind of like Wilson Contreras last year, he destroyed the baseball in spring and then couldn't hit, but it's because pitchers are doing work and adjustments just need to be made.
Right.
So you really, there's so much to pay attention to that we're not going to know because it has nothing to do with stat lines. I'm wrapping up. What's your next one?
So for me, I don't know how much this really falls into like the winter warm up with the Cardinals, but it was announced during this time. And so for me, like the excitement, you know me, this is my boy all time, but just bringing Yachty into an actual solid role on the organization. And
I was going to ask you about that later, so let's do it.
So, like, I mean, not only is he, you know, the special assistant to Bloom, but like when you kind of dig into it and you read some of the articles, he's going to be expected to mentor the catchers and he's going to have a role in influencing the strategy of the games, you know, especially from the defensive input in the pitcher's side. And for me, that's where the benefit is because Yachty's knowledge of the game is what really propelled him further in his career and in my opinion, made him a first ballot Hall of Fame catcher. I know some people will argue with that, and I'm here. Come at me. We'll figure it out. We'll go back and forth on that all day long.
You're such a St. Louis fan.
I know. What can I say? But like for me, I think the excitement of that is because you bring someone who has the winning pedigree of St. Louis and what he was able to do. And even he has the people that he can reference, like, you know, Chris Carpenter and Albert Pujols and of those magnitude. He can talk about that with the players and there's instant credibility. Whereas some of the other guys that can be in that clubhouse, even the coaches, not that they're not valued, all of those things, but it's just different when you play at a level that Yachty played at and you succeeded in the way he did. And so for him to be able to be around a lot more now, I know he's going to be out a lot of spring because of the World Baseball Classic, but the fun of a lot of that is also he's still going to be around some of the players. And so he's still going to be able to have that interaction and maybe he can build a little bit of camaraderie and friendship with some of these guys before he even gets back to the team. But then once he's there working, because I'm sure he's probably, if I know Yachty, he's already contacted like Herrera and Pajes and those guys to really kind of set the tone. And we know Pajes is already excited about because that's who he wanted to pattern his game after anyway.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited for it. I'm a little skeptical, I'm not going to lie, just because the same announcement was made in 2024. It's a different office, obviously, and we don't know what happened. We can speculate, of course, but I am excited. I think I agree with you, and I'm excited for him to be around again. The announcement said that there are specific jobs, which I do appreciate. You know, like Bloom said in his release, I just pulled this up. During visits with us in the new role, both in and out of uniform, he'll provide input on our catching program, advise our staff on catching and game planning strategy, and he will give me and our front office valuable perspective from his unique vantage point. So, according to just the statement itself, he'll be with the office sometime. It's probably a behind-the-scenes job.
Oh, 100%. Like, I mean, you'll probably see him in uniform occasionally like he's done in the past.
Yeah, like last year.
In the dugout. But primarily, this is what he's going to be behind the scenes in the front office, really speaking to it. And what's fascinating, because I know a lot of Cardinals fans, and I mean, I was one of them at this point that was clamoring, like, give the man a managerial role. Like, yeah. And is this kind of like that precedent setting, like, hey, Ollie, you better be on your guard or you're out the door and Yachty can take over? That's always going to be talked about. But I'm starting to wonder, too, if Yachty doesn't envision himself at a higher level of baseball. I know he said he wants to be a manager, but at the same token...
You mean like an office?
Yeah, like I think, could he start out as being like an assistant GM and then end up moving his way into GM as well? Because that's where his passion is not just coaching, but being able to have control over an organization in a sense, as far as players and in setting strategy and things like that. Now, would I rule out him being the manager ultimately? No. But at the same token, the way it looks to me from this side is, one, yes, they just want to keep him a part of the organization, but maybe there are some thoughts of keeping him at the higher level of the organization versus in the managerial role.
Yeah, I kind of think personally he probably will thrive at that more. I don't know if you know this about him, but he's kind of a passionate player,
right?
Or an emotional person.
If you look too fast, you'll miss it, right?
Yeah, right. The thing I've noticed is that particular job, that particular seat, is not necessarily about managing the baseball game. It is. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But you're way more managing personalities and leading personalities and trying to get the best out of human beings and connect with them. And I mean, I've never met Yachty in my life, and I never had a conversation with him. It's just you can speculate and think things from far away. And I think you're right. That might end up being a better position for him. The thing I'm excited, I think, the most with it, pending, just getting to see him in uniform is always fun.
Right.
But Ivan Herrera is very obsessed with Yachty, and he's made tons and tons of comments, statements, in interviews about how it's the person he's looked up to the most. And, I mean, he spent the majority of his career looking underneath him and trying to learn to be about him. And you don't know what that might mean, help behind the scenes, Ivan's supposed to be giving him the opportunity to catch, and Bloom made a statement a month or two ago about how, if you think about Herrera's position in this organization, he's not really been given an opportunity to even learn how to catch and like really, really get elite at it. He's never been given that opportunity with the lack of development that's there. So in that process, like Ivan's bat is the most important thing. Giving him the opportunity to swing it 162 games is I would probably say number one priority. He would probably maybe say that, although he's always said he's really passionate about wanting to be as good as Yachty. And so you never know what that might mean for him, like in spring or behind the scenes they get to work, and that Ivan could figure it out and he might be a 140 game catcher, which would be insane if you could get that production behind it.
Right.
So I'm excited about that. You never know. And I think also just him being around, the whole thing about in the announcement said about bringing that championship mindset, because when you're a team that doesn't have veterans on it and they're not trying to win the World Series this year, which they could. I mean, baseball's a weird game, but on paper they're not supposed to be anywhere close. Having people around that are winners and to say, hey, we might not win this game, but you need to win what you're supposed to do today. I think that's really important. And I'm excited about that with it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that. And so, again, not to belabor the point, but, I mean, anytime you can have a player of that caliber stick around, And he, we know he's not shy about calling out the best in what he sees. And when you talk to other people that have been around him, he does it the right way. Like, he's going to get in your face, but he's also going to be the first one to celebrate with you when you get it right.
Absolutely. So for me, the second thing that stuck out to me, I'm going to kind of do a big overview. The pitching development changes and some of the pitchers' interviews who had a cohesive kind of thought. Excuse me. Quinn Matthews, Liam Doyle, Michael McGreevy. I'm trying to think who is the other one. Palante is another one, but there was one more pitcher I'm trying to think about that we got to hear from. But one big thing that was pervasive through everybody is the kick change is a pitch that, like, man, 2/3, 3/4 of all of these pitchers are trying to add to their repertoire, which I think is kind of interesting because the changeup as a whole is a pitch that a lot of people already throw, but the kick change is just a different placement of the fingers and what it does. It came big on that pitcher from the Mets. I forgot what his name is. He's was a reliever, became a starter. And it moves like crazy. But I thought that was kind of an interesting, like, the organization is having all of their pitchers try to get this kick change in their repertoire. But then a few of them talked about how they have game plans for their off season and what they're supposed to come into spring training and what they're going to learn in spring training. Liam Doyle talked a lot about this. I did find it interesting that Doyle is not going to be in spring training whatsoever. They're not bringing him there. They're sending him straight to minor league camp to warm up. And that makes sense from the point of view for his health and development.
Right.
First appearance in pro ball period. But, like, the thing I'm noticing is this is kind of the first spring with the brand new complete office change and new development staff. They talked about how Matt Pierpont, who is our pitching director, pitching coordinator, has laid out plans for each of them that are all a little unique, all a little bit different based on their profiles and what they need to do for the off season, and, like, super detailed. And I don't remember hearing about that a year ago, 2 years ago. I know our coaching staff has done a pretty incredible job about pitcher health.
Right.
Like last year, one bullpen arm got hurt out of everybody, and that's pretty unprecedented.
Right.
I also think there's a little bit of luck to that, but at the same time, you never know what behind the scenes they're able to do to help that figure that out. So I wonder, is part of this trend, or not trend, but part of this direction started a little bit last year, and it started in the health department and it's kept going. But they did talk about that. And I enjoyed Quinn Matthews' interview a lot. He's a really quirky dude. And the two things that stuck out for me is he talked a lot about his time with Sonny Gray in spring last year, because he was one of the first ones to get sent to minor league camp, I remember.
Right.
But they did, Ollie did talk about how they learned a lot in that first, however much time. But Matthews in his interviews talked a lot about the things he was talking with Sonny Gray and how important those conversations were, which are things that we're never going to, we can't write a stat value to that. There's no way to track, what that does. But that still sits on him. And he even said that there are things that Gray told me I should do and changes I should make. And I think it was more to preparation and, timeline of gearing up for each start that he just didn't think about. Like, he didn't write it down, but like halfway through the season when he was struggling, he's like, dude, if I would have just done what Gray told me, this wouldn't have happened.
Right.
But you got to learn those things. So I really liked how he talked about how, like, he hates failing, and this game is built around that, and he got to experience a lot of that, and now he's got new direction to come from that. So I really enjoyed that. It is interesting if you think about our entire rotation potential. Like, there's now 8 starters. If you count him, 7 or 8 starters for 5 positions, which is fantastic to have, but, like...
Right, because you're going to need that depth.
Yeah,
especially
what if...
with young guys.
Absolutely. What if Palante is not doing what he needs to do, and Quinn Matthews has done everything? Well, Matthews isn't on the 40, and they're paying Palante $3 million.
Yeah, which is nothing.
No, but I don't think you want to pay a player $3 million to go to the minors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so my thing I'm going to be paying attention to, if things like that happen, what are the decisions offices and staff is going to make? Because in the old last couple of years, money is precedent over talent. You know, if you're paying a pitch, I mean, not to throw crazy shade, but
Come on, man.
Miles Michaelis has been pretty way below average, but makes every single start and was given tons of money. And Fetty lost us like, I think we lost like 20 something games down the stretch with him.
Right.
And it was just like, well, we're paying him. He's the veteran. Like, we got to give him space. And so I'm paying attention to those decisions because, like, if we come out of spring and X pitcher was slated to be the number 3, but man, he is missing many things and it's not working out. But this pitcher who's not on the 40 is, you know, he's got what it takes and he's actually really ready. Which decision are they going to make? I'm paying attention to those. But the kick change addition was notable, and then hearing about Matthews and his adjustments and learning to fail, I thought was really good.
Yeah, when it comes to pitching, like I love all that you said. I'm not going to repeat it, but like the only thing I'll add is like the beauty with like our pitching staff too is no one is really getting paid astronomically as far as on the starting side. Right. So I don't think there will be that big challenge because like for me, and we're kind of picking on Palante, you know, deep down inside, there's part of me that hopes he figures it out. But at the same time, if he doesn't, $3 million, there's a team out there that will grab that and give him another chance.
For sure.
Like,
for sure.
I mean, pack your bags, head to Colorado, my friend. They'll give you $3 million to pitch out there in Coors Field and figure it out type of deal. So it's like that to me, you know, I think, you know, at least what I've seen so far of Bloom, he will be quick to say, hey, let's just move on from this. Yeah. It's not working. And so I do get excited about the young guys. I think for me, when it comes to the pitching and what you're talking about is like, I want to see some of these guys, whether it's Eshawn Henderson, who had a phenomenal year last year, kind of started to tail off a little bit. What is he going to look like coming into spring this year? Are there going to be, you know, like you said, 8 guys for 5 rotation spots? Are there going to be some guys that surface into that and it becomes more like 10 guys that are really fighting for these 5 spots?
Right.
And the fire that it lights up under some of the other guys. Because again, you're talking about Leahy coming in. We saw what Leahy could do in the bullpen role. So if he doesn't pan out as a starter, does he shift back into the bullpen in that capacity? Or does he become an expendable player that you end up looking to trade even to get a lower end prospect out of that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, I'm not even mentioning there's quite a few pitchers that got added to the 40 just because of service time. Like his name is, I just pulled it up and I just found it and now it's disappeared. Bryson Motts, who won Pitcher of the Year in the organization, which Quinn Matthews won the previous year.
Right.
And he had a dominant season. He was in AA though, so he's got to go to triple. And one thing Heim has made clear is he looks at AAA really, really importantly. Right. And I think in his career you can kind of see too that he doesn't rush players through AAA. He kind of it seems like he has the opinion of like, you need to dominate that league before I let you step in the big leagues.
Yeah. And
so nobody's skipping AA in this organization under him, which means Leonardo Bernal, Joshua Baez, they're going to sit in AAA for the year, or at least half the year, unless they're just blowing up.
So, yeah, I mean,
pitchers
Baez,
included.
Right. Baez is an interesting one because he is that right-handed power profile that they're trying to acquire. So what's fascinating to me is if they go out and get a right-handed power bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he sits in AAA unless he really explodes. In that sense, even for part of the year, like if they go out and sign, or it comes back in some sort of deal with Donovan somehow, where they get a left fielder of that caliber, I don't know that he's going to break camp. And I wouldn't bet on him breaking camp regardless.
I agree.
So, he's going to have to do something phenomenal in spring in order to even get a look at potentially breaking
And again,
camp, in my
nothing
opinion.
to do with the stat lines of his spring either.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. There's quite a few pitchers that aren't in the big highlights, like Liam Doyle's and Quinn Matthews of the world in the system that could blow the waters off, and fans and media aren't paying as much attention to. So the pitching pipeline has exploded, not in the sense of like we brought in quite a few arms, but we're seeing development of some of the arms that we weren't seeing before. So I'm honestly really excited to see that, because if you think about it, I feel like I should confirm this with numbers, but Fetty and Michaelis collectively lost us like 40 or 50 games when they started collectively. And that doesn't mean they're like win-loss total. And so you take them out of the rotation and you replace them with young arms that are just average. You already have more wins in the season.
Right.
Just by getting rid of something and replacing it with something that was just average. So I'm excited to see that development, which also makes me think like you never know. And we'll talk about that later, but
yeah, and absolutely. And we haven't even these are names we haven't even hit. You still are talking about the likes of, from the pitching side, like Hunter Dobbins or Dick Fitz, like those guys that were acquired, and even some of the younger guys that come in. Now, obviously the younger guys that we got, in the Boston side for, the trade with Wilson Contreras, like the younger guys are going to need development time. They're not ready to even sniff that. But, the Dobbins and the Fitz from the Gray trade, like they have potential to be really, really good. Like I'm keeping an eye on Dobbins, especially because he was really good before he got injured. And now can he find that again? And again, we haven't even really talked about Dustin May in that sense. Is not really a young guy, but he's only 28. These guys are 26, 28 years old, getting ready to really hit their stride of their prime that could be really good pitchers still.
Absolutely. And I can't remember one of those. Was it Fitz or was it Dobbins that he did like a 10 strikeout, 12 strikeout game against us? It was the beginning of the season, but
right. I think it was Dobbins, but I could be wrong on
Dobbins?
that too.
Okay. What's your third one?
So for me, the third one is just simply this. It kind of goes along the same line, just on the opposite side. I mentioned it a little bit, but like this idea that the only secure spot in our outfield right now is VS2. I love the idea, especially around Jordan Walker and even that left field with Lars Nootbaar, that the competition's going to be wide open. I mean, we already talked about Baez. Church is on the team, and there's some hype about him. There's a couple other guys down in the minor league system that they're potentially looking at in that role as well. And again, we haven't even talked about or really mentioned maybe that free agent signing that they could potentially bring in to be that power cornered bat. But Bloom is basically signaled by all accounts that Walker or Nootbaar is not secure in their starting role in left or right field. And I like that for both of those guys because you know me. I mean, I didn't put it on like you did, Tim, so I missed out on a huge opportunity here.
Yeah.
But I've got my Nootbaar jersey. Like I believe the kid. I mean, we say it all the time. Everybody says it. StatCast darling, but when is that really going to pan out for a full season? And he's already going to miss, a couple weeks, maybe longer into the season because of his injury. And so it's like, I like maybe what Bloom's trying to do here in lighting a fire under these guys, because we've already seen Walker. He's been at Driveline. Now, not everything at Driveline's been great for him there. We've seen some videos that question some things in his development. But then also I like the fact that, it seems like he's got a new passion to really try and figure it out, especially from the offensive side. Because, again, Ollie mentioned it. You've talked about it before. Like, maybe this guy is just a late bloomer. And, for me, I would hate to give up on him, but I also don't want to just say, hey, you're our right fielder. If, like, chances we do have some of these young guys, like let's say Mason Winn and Donovan starts the season here with us, and Victor Scott, those guys start living up to their potential, not just defensively but offensively.
Yeah.
And we are in the mix. But then you've got this guy in right field who's batting $152 and can't keep the ball off the ground.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to make that hard decision. And I hope that's not the case for him. Like, I hope he starts to find some success and can return back. And the same with Nootbaar. Like, I like Nootbaar. I think he's a plus defender in left field. I don't want to see him stuck out in center field at all. So for me, you know, you're talking, there might be 6 guys at the end of the day coming into spring that are vying for those 3 outfield positions. And what I mean by that is going to be left field, right field, and then the bench role of the outfield. So it's like, for me, that's exciting because I think you're going to get to see them press a little bit harder. Whereas, like, maybe for Walker last year, and I'm not in his mind, haven't had a conversation with him, but he already knew, hey, right field's mine. What do I have to, you know, I don't have to do anything. It's mine. So there was a little bit, it appeared to be a lackadaisical attitude going into some of the stuff. And I know he got frustrated with his mechanics and the changes that they were asking of. All of that stuff weighs in. But maybe because there's a little pressure now, he can kind of push himself a little bit more. And the same with Nootbaar, because it's like, hey, look, we're talking about moving on from you. Like, we will trade you if it doesn't work out. Maybe that, you know, sparks a little bit in him, and he can go, hey, I want to go play with my boy Nato in Arizona, or I want to go to L.A. and play with Shohei. You know, but he's going to have to play up to get moved. So
I do agree. I do think Walker has a high chance to start, but I do think he still kind of has to earn it.
Right.
And again, we don't know. It's not the stat lines that the organization's looking at in spring. It could be, I mean, we could speculate, you know, the adjustments that we wanted you to make. Did you make them? What does that look like? You know, pitch selection for just stop swinging at the pitches, the bottom right of the zone. You know, that's all they're going to throw you. You know, so what, you know, will it take for him to win the job? It's not going to be like blow the cover off the baseball in spring.
No.
But I do think he has a higher chance because he's got the pedigree of the prospect status. You know, the tools that he has says, like, dude, you should be really good at this game. But I do think, like, there's a chance he could go to AAA. He's got an option. So that isn't out of the question. And I do agree with you. I think that is a chance. I don't know what the 6 outfielders, though. Like, Baez is the only one. And Church.
So, okay, so you got Church, Baez. You've got
I guess I just don't.
Whoever they bring in. Whoever they bring in from the outside. So you've got, like, that as an opportunity. Like I said, the only one we know for certain on the opening day roster, and I'll let you hit the highlights with him, is going to be Victor Scott, because we've heard the conversation around him. Yeah. He's going to get every opportunity, much like Jordan Walker got every opportunity last year in right field. VS2's getting that in center. Yeah. And so for me, like, I'm with you. I think Walker is the front line. He's going to get the first option at right field. Yeah. And again, it's not going to be numbers based, but I think they're looking, does his hard contact rate go up? Does his fly ball percentage go up? Because that's going to be a big thing for him. Those are things that they're looking at. I mean, if he flies out, let's say he gets like 4 hits all of spring, but they're hard contact hits, they're in the air, they're just not maybe carrying as much as they want them to, they could live with that. Because if he's hitting the ball hard and he's getting it up in the air more than he has, that's improvement. That's showing signs of life. And and we've seen when he connects with the ball as hard as he hits the ball, if he can get some loft on it, he's going to have no trouble being a 25, 30 home run guy. Yeah.
I think strike zone discipline is probably the key to, like, good swings on pitches that are in the zone. He's going to have some chase to him, especially at this. I mean, we're going in reverse in his development cycle. Yeah. So he's one of the worst swing rate or chase rates in baseball. So we're going to have to correct that. That's not going to go from 0 to best in the league in one season. But does he make that hard contact in the zone versus, hitting the ball out of the zone?
Yeah, and I think they're partners, right? Because if you're swinging at better pitches, you get to control the swing a little bit better. When you're flailing, just trying to make contact, it's just not gonna. It doesn't look pretty, and it's not going to work.
I'm trying to think of what is the win for Walker this year? Like, what does his season look like?
Are you talking statistically or just overall? Like
both. Like if we're going to go into 2027 and we're not moving on from Walker, we're going to decide to build around him. What does the season look like realistically? A good realistic expectation. Like, is it his rookie year again, or is it something different?
I mean, yes, to a degree. I don't think the average necessarily has to be that similar. Like, I mean, honestly, if he's going to be an 8-hole hitter for us, and you're looking at someone that can hit 235, 245, the home runs go up a little bit more, the RBIs go up a touch in that regard. As far as, and again, outside of the stat line, you're seeing consistent progress towards the ultimate goal for him. And I think then you could sign on and say, hey, you know what? If he's going to consistently keep, making the adjustments and changes, because again, just like anybody, he's going to make some adjustments and he might come out of the gate look strong, and then pitchers are going to make adjustments.
Yeah.
And then he's going to have to go back and make adjustments again. And so I think you're right on the sense where it's a lot of plate discipline. What does that look like consistently throughout the year, which will then translate to a harder hit rate, which then I think will translate into more fly balls, which then statistically gets to more home runs, more RBIs. Doesn't necessarily mean that the average is going to skyrocket.
Right.
But, if he can get around, like ideally, I think, yes, if he could be a 250, 260 hitter and hit 25 home runs, like they will be out of their mind ecstatic for what he could be.
Yeah.
I think on the low end of that, if it's 235-ish, he's at nearing the 20 home run mark, somewhere around 20 home runs, and let's say he's at 70-ish RBIs for the season, they'll be like, this is our right fielder we want to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about what the floor would need to be basically to give him another year, because his value is the lowest it's ever been right now, so trading him has no value whatsoever. He's got too many good elite tools to just say go. He's got a brand new development system. He's another year older. So I'm not into the hype of him. For me, he's a situation where like I'm just gonna watch him play. I'm not gonna be excited or not gonna be like bummed. I just want to see him play and see what happens for him.
Yeah, and who knows if let's say Nootbaar pops off when he gets back, and then Baez is doing his thing, or even Church for that matter, or is it Koperniak or down like if they end up like really popping off, those guys can come in and replace him if he's not. Like that's the beauty, because Nootbaar can go back to right field, which is where he's probably most comfortable, I would say, of anywhere, and then you put a Baez, or maybe if you sign Andujar or somebody like that can play left field, you can put Nootbaar back in right field and really have some good opportunities if Nootbaar is hitting, in that capacity.
Yeah. What something I think about, we're not talking about Nolan Gorman whatsoever right now.
No.
Which is kind of an interesting thing in and of itself, because he's an ARB now, so he's going to start making money. And I think this is probably like we don't know, but this is probably the last season that it's like, all right, man, are you going to perform with the tools that you have, or are you not? And I'm a little more interested to see Gorman play, not because it's someone I'm stoked to watch, but of everybody on the roster, he's the only one with the biggest power ceiling. Sure. Maybe aside from what's his name, the first baseman, blanking, brain fart right now. Came from
Blaze
Boston.
Jordan.
Yeah, Blaze Jordan kind of has a similar power profile, a lot of swing and miss, but a lot of power ceiling. But Gorman's already hit 27 home runs in
Right.
like 120 plate appearances. So I mean, not 120 plate appearances, 120 games. So he's got such a power ceiling, and we're really close to the end of the tenure. And you know what? Is he going to be a bust, or is he going to turn himself into a good ball player? With paying attention to that. My last big takeaway is not just Victor Scott, but the tandem of Vic and Mason Winn.
I love it.
My first ever jersey is Mason Winn.
That's right.
Big fan. I'm excited to hear what he talked about. The two things that stick out to me is the confidence, kind of similar in the same way with JJ, but Winn's confidence about, I want a Gold Glove this year. I want a ton of them. So I'm going to get better. And then the other thing that stuck out to me is his, aside from the playing through the injury with his knee, he talked about his offensive profile and the changes he made from last season to try and get a little more pool happy and go after home runs made him a little bit worse of an offensive player.
Sure.
And
right.
he addressed the fact that in 2024, he was an oppo hitter and did a way better job of hitting the pitches that were given to him and sending them the other way. And if you think about his 2024 season, he was an elite bat to ball contact player.
Right.
I mean, he was not like the elite player, but for first year in the big leagues, being a defensive first, essentially, player with some really good contact skills, just swung at too many pitches. He had a good offensive profile to build off in 2024, and he changed the direction of it. And he addressed in the winter warm-up about how he's wanting to revert back to the contact-oriented, put the ball in the gap in right field. And I'm really excited to see that because Ollie Marmol has talked about how much he is into and hyping. He's not hyping, but he is stoked to see the development of Mason Winn and Victor Scott.
Right.
Which they both have a similar profile of, like speed athletes that are just defensive wizards that have some specific contact skills and bat skills. And so I'm excited to see. I like the fact that Winn addressed the change that he made. It didn't work out, and he's not that player, and he needs to go back to being the skill, having the skills and hitting profile that he actually is. And then for Vic, without turning too much into a fanboy, which is really hard to do.
Let it all out, baby. Let it all out.
I did think it was interesting and worth note that when in all of Ollie Marmol's interviews, when you asked him and he talked about the things that he's looking forward to seeing, the two things that always stuck out were the pitching development, in coordination with Pierpont, and the amount of pitchers that they have to work with. That seems like a staff, managing staff's dream. Victor Scott was the thing that, man, he brought that up like 4 or 5 times, and multiple staff members brought that up as well. The big thing that Ollie said is the reason that I'm excited to see what the offseason did for Vic coming into spring, because he didn't say that he's going to be this amazing player.
Right.
He talked about Vic's ability last season to take failure and to learn from it, and how he writes down what he needs to do. He doesn't get emotional about it. He doesn't get his attitude with those things. Says that his plan and his discipline is going to allow him to make adjustments. Now he has to do it.
Right.
But the way he talked about that, and then the thing that in Vic's interview he talked about, he wants to steal 70 bags this year, which is really exciting. But
get on base.
Right, yeah. He talked about in the offseason, the first thing he did was he went to West Virginia, where he went to college, and he did a biomechanic study and got some tests done how to make his body more efficient and to move his body correctly with his swing. So there were some things that they discovered that in his swing path and in his body movement with his leg kick and everything, that it was not efficient the way his body moved. So the changes that he made in his swing will help his body be a little bit more efficient and use his athleticism. In the end, we want to see the result, you know. What's that going to mean on the field and in play? But with what Ollie talks about, you know, in his notes he takes in his study and he does in his work he does with the staff and preparation, communication, and taking what he's supposed to learn, plus the adjustments that he's going to make, plus the changes he made with his swing, talking about how he was ready for the fastball and on the fastball, and then they adjusted and sent him breaking balls, and he couldn't learn to adjust that. The awareness he has of that, I'm stoked to see him play. I have a player type. I love watching athletic young players that make contact and are just really fast. I would probably be the biggest fan of the 80s, you know,
100%.
But it's fun to see because if you think about it, what Vic's ceiling could be is maybe like if you think about his minor season, he hit like 320, he hit over 300, stole like 96 bases. Those exact stats don't always translate to the major league level, but
sure,
that tells me his profile is of that caliber. He might hit 15 home runs in his ceiling, maybe 18, but if you're telling me that a guy can get on base at a 340, 350 clip, steal 50 to 60 bases a year, plus maybe hit 10 to 15 home runs, but hit like 10 to 15 triples, having that in your lineup is a beautiful thing, and you never know what it does to the competition for the rest of the hitters. You know, if he's on base 35% of the time and he's a stealing threat every single pitch, like, you never know what that can do for who's batting next. Man, he's a lot of fun to watch too. Like, who doesn't like seeing Mason Winn and Victor Scott highlights, defensive highlights?
Right.
So I'm pretty stoked about that. And in the end, it's got to translate.
Right.
You know, they need to be players that are successful and winning games. We don't just want to watch fun athletes all the time. We need to win games, and the club needs to win. But I'm on the train a little bit, you know. I think if those two can get to what, if you can get Vic to a 100 OPS plus, even 90 OPS plus player, and he plays Gold Glove defense and he steals 50 plus bags, like that's a huge advantage for your team. If
Sure.
Mason Winn can get to 110, 115% OPS plus, so 15% above league average, and win Gold Gloves at short, dude, those are two elite players that you want to go to the ballpark and watch.
Right, and at key positions. I mean,
Yes.
The only thing you're lacking there is catcher. And I mean, we've already addressed on that as far as whether Herrera can really fulfill that, step into that role. But like, we got some young prospects in that spot that might be able to fill that role if he doesn't, and he can go to playing first base or DH if he doesn't. But like, at the end of the day, it is exciting. And I think, and I'm hopeful that the fans will come back out for that. To see some of that excitement. I mean, I think it's going to be short-lived if there isn't some sort of progression or success on the field.
Sure.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're playoff bound this year, but I think they need to see that they're competitive again. Like, not that they're winning every game, but they're in more games than they're not.
Yeah.
And because let's be honest, with some of these young guys, there are going to be some games that we're probably going to have to endure this year that are going to be pretty lopsided in some degrees, and that's going to be okay. But I'm with you. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, if Donovan gets traded before the season starts, I don't think there's really anybody on our roster that can be leadoff outside of Victor Scott in that capacity.
Or JJ.
Well, I don't even look at JJ in that capacity because he's going to be more of your 2 to 3 hole, maybe 5 hole hitter than per se that leadoff guy. Now, Vic's you're right. He's got to go out and prove it.
Yes.
And I'm not saying throw him at, leadoff right away. But I think he's got to start progressing in the manner in which he looks like he's going to be that prototypical leadoff guy for you.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing with him is, I mean, I'd stick him at leadoff because if you look at his savant, he's got a really good chase rate. in the sense of like he doesn't chase very much. He's got a really good eye and good discipline. It's his swing mechanics that don't allow him to make the contact needed to get on base. But if he could make that adjustment paired with his discipline, like he can walk. He walked
100%.
really well. He had what did he end up? He had a 216 average. And this is with, if you think about his March, April, and May, he was hitting over 300.
Right.
He ended up with a 216 average because the second half was just atrocious.
Right.
But he still ended up in the 73 percentile for chase. And so he can walk. And he ended up with over 300 on base. So he's got the discipline. It's the swing mechanics and the swing timing to get him there. But you're right. Like in the season that's supposed to be, rebuilding and like we're not supposed to win, figuring out where these guys tool and place in the lineup goes.
Yep.
If he's got a good eye and he can get on base just walking and he hits 250, dude, you put that kid on base to steal every single time at a 350 clip, that's 50 to 70 stolen bases every year.
Right. And you'll take it all day long. Like,
Absolutely.
There's no argument with that.
Absolutely. I do. Let's talk about a little bit of, I don't know, maybe projection. I'm interested to see what you think about wins and like where you think the team is going to be, because I'm going to bring up the Freddie Peralta trade. So Milwaukee traded Freddie Peralta to the Mets, got 2 top 100 prospects in it for it. But the reason I bring that up is that makes the Cubs the clear, complete, on paper, best team in the Central and top 3 or 4 teams in the National League. But what do you think that means for the division? Like the projections of the Cardinals are like 72, 70 wins.
Yeah.
I just kind of look at the roster and I think about, so I told you about the Michaelis and Fetty. They both, it's crazy. Michaelis, every time he started, he lost the team 16 games.
Okay.
Fetty lost the team 15 games in his starts. He only started 20.
Right.
So 2/3 of his starts were a loss. We got rid of those pitchers. We replaced them with young guys, which we don't know what they are for a full season.
Right.
But even if they only do half that, that's 10 more wins than last year. And if you think about the offense, like we got rid of Arenado, who was, what was he, 80% or 20% below league average or something?
I think so.
The only real loss was Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras. Contreras was 15 to 20% above league average. We won a ton of Sonny Gray's games.
Right.
So you got to take those losses into account. But the team's not really that different.
No.
And we won 78 last year.
Right. And that's why I say, like, if you were to ask me, like, I would put the mark at like 75 to 80 wins. I mean, realistically, I think we're not that different of a team than where we were last year. It's just different players. Yeah. But the nice thing, like you said, with the pitching staff, I think if someone's really struggling, you just flip-flop them with somebody else who's having some success. Whereas last year, that wasn't the case. You weren't going to be able to do that. And so you just had to ride it out with the likes of Palante and even Michaelis when they were struggling crazy bad in that regard. So, I think now you get an opportunity to go, hey, a little bit of, hey, we got a hot hand here. Let's ride the hot hand. And if we got somebody who's kind of getting into that cold dynamic, who's down in AAA that's heating up, that we can flip-flop them with, which you see a lot of teams do successfully. And so that gives me hope on that side for them. Not that I think, best case scenario, they're sniffing a wild card.
Yeah.
But worst case is they may be a 72, 73 win team that's, fighting with, maybe the Rockies and some other teams down there at the bottom level of MLB, which, I mean, I think is the expectation. But I'm buying in with some of the players. I think this team can be better and surprise some people. Now, some things have to pan out for that to happen. But if I were to rate the division, I mean, I'm probably still going to say, yes, the Cubs are the best team by far. Now I would say Cincinnati and Milwaukee are probably pretty close together.
Yeah, I
for
agree.
that second slot on paper. The Pirates, I think they've done some nice things, and maybe they'll hang around for a bit, but I don't see them. I think we'll be the bottom dwellers unless some of these young players hit, and then maybe we can surprise some teams. And again, you're talking all this without catastrophic injury. I mean, if a couple players go down on any of the teams that we mentioned, it's going to shake up the entire Central.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think with taking the Cubs out of the equation and then being the clear favorite, they're probably going to win 92 to 95 games.
Right.
Milwaukee losing Freddie Peralta is a big deal. They don't have a starter of that status that's going to guarantee them, wins. They have a lot of good pitching it's going to be probably elite, and nobody understands why. So you can never count them out. But I don't think the Cardinals, Reds, and Pirates are that far apart from each other. Each team has a specific, good part of their roster. The Pirates' pitching is just unreal. They did make some good offensive moves, like you said, but I don't know that you never know how it's going to shake out. Baseball's a weird game. But if you take Fetty out of the equation, and like you talked about this season, if a pitcher's 3 or 4 losses in a row and they're just broken down, flip him really quick. Last year, we didn't do that.
No.
We ran him out for 10-plus games in a row, and he was atrocious. But if you replace that in 3 or 4 games and then you get 4 or 5 wins out of that, we have the same win total of the Reds, and we make the playoffs last year.
Right.
I don't think any of those teams are too far off that.
No.
At the ceiling, the team's probably 80 to 82. And at the floor, I agree with you, probably 72, 74. But I just go back to, they're not that different from last year. And technically, if Donovan stays, J.J. Weatherholt goes to third base, we upgraded the position at third base significantly, and Burleson is the same hitter statistically that Wilson gave us last year. So we improved our offense.
Right. I agree. Offensively, again, that's barring JJ coming up and hitting like he hit.
Yes, yeah.
In AAA, those things, there's going to be questions about it, but I think you're absolutely right. I think on all accounts, our offense got a little bit better. There are some questions around defense that I do have, in the sense of, can Burleson really play first base at a full-time level?
Yeah.
As far as good
defensively, skill or
okay. I'm not talking I know he can play the position, but when you got Mason Wynn throwing 85, 95 mile an hour fastball down in the dirt, are you going to be okay to scoop that bad boy and save some errors, or are some things going to get away from you? But I think we had that same question coming in when we knew Wilson Contreras was going to play first. We didn't know what type of first baseman he was going to be. Developed into a pretty daggone good first baseman.
Yeah, he was really good.
And I think that Burley has that tendency as well. And I'll be interested too, because you do have someone like Nolan Gorman sitting on the outside. Nobody's talking about him. Nobody's really, making a lot of mention of his name. But if all of a sudden he can find some consistency, especially at the plate, the kid could be special. He could be that missing power piece that you've been asking for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. We're fans. We get excited to watch baseball, but I agree with you. I don't think the team's as bad as people think and it's projected to be, just simply because they're not that different.
No.
And so I am excited. I just love baseball in general.
Can we please just get here? I mean,
right. Let's
I'm
go.
starting to see on all my apps, ESPN, all that stuff, the dates for the spring games, and I'm like, don't tempt me like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and too, with the WBC, reporting dates are 2 days earlier, so we get 2 more days of just a little bit of info drop. But if you're still here, thanks for listening. Let us know, if you're Cardinals fans, what did you hear from the warm up that made you excited or made you question, hey, I'm not sure if this is going to work. Let us know your thoughts, and thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.